recording pending. There we go. You're recording. All right, cool. All right. So we're recording now. But like I said, if you have a question or a comment that you want to throw, just pop off mute. You don't have to raise your hand or anything like that. Just pop off mute and be like, well, what about this? Or does it work like this? And I'll do my best to answer that question for you. All right. So camera framing, basically, when we talk about the framing type, like how are you going to frame it is how I would probably ask you, how are you going to frame that shot? That is talking about the distance from the camera to the main subject of the scene, which 90% of the time is going to be a person. Sometimes it's an object, right? Different framings, depending on the framing you choose, different framings convey different meanings and intents to your audience. And our goal as a director is to get our intent across clearly, right? We want all the members of the audience to kind of understand and feel the way that we want them to feel and understand. So let's take a look at the various framings. The way that this PowerPoint that I built is set up is it starts with the furthest away type of framings, and each one gets successively closer. So that makes it pretty simple to understand. And we're going to start off with the furthest away shot type, which is called an extreme wide shot. Some people call it an establishing shot, and sometimes you'll see it abbreviated as XWS, right? The X for extreme. So these are kind of the different names right here for these types of shots. Now, the extreme wide shot or an establishing shot is usually the first shot when you do a new scene heading and you go to a new place, because we are establishing where this sequence, where this scene is going to be taking place. So like if you've ever watched a sitcom, Simpsons or Friends or Seinfeld or whatever the case may be, you'll notice that whenever there's a new scene, they go with the establishing shot here of the exterior of the school, and then they'll cut inside to show whatever the students are doing in school. Or if you're watching Friends, right, it's the exterior of the apartment, and then the little music cue plays, do 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 do, and then it cuts inside the apartment to show what Ross and Rachel are up to or whatever, right? These shots are far away, right? It shows the whole building. So this camera is, 30 to 40 feet away from the front of the school, right? It's all the way in the street. Or here, this example up here of Mad Max, you can see that I think these little black dots here are like the cars, like they're super duper tiny. So we're hundreds of feet away from the subjects here, right? The important thing here is showing off the location. Extreme wide shots really are not about the characters. It's when the location becomes a something that's important to think about, right? The setting. We saw this when we watched Samurai Jack, and Jack went onto the island, and those first shots on the island were him so tiny and the big giant trees and the big giant setting, right? So it's establishing kind of the setting as a character. The setting has something important going on. Like here, obviously, it's this giant dust cloud rising towards them. Here's some more establishing shots, right? You can see that Gandalf is very small in this scene, and it's really about the location of Minas Tirith, right? This giant cliffside city. Or here, this is from The Day After Tomorrow, when the ice age comes and it freezes New York City. And then so these shots are about location, right? They're not about characters. Characters are way too small. You don't know what character am I supposed to focus on and care about here? You don't know, right? So extreme wide shots are mostly about the location or setting. Characters are going to be very tiny physically and emotionally. So like we saw with Samurai Jack, when he's that tiny little person up against the wide forest, it makes him feel very small and powerless, right? The world is so big. I include this one down here because I've been seeing a lot of this type of shot for establishing shots lately because drones are so cheap now. Back in the day, like the 80s or something like that, you wouldn't see a lot of this because you'd have to rent a helicopter and you'd have to get a film camera up there. And now you're talking insurance and gas and helicopter pilots. You're talking $20,000-$30,000. Now what's a drone cost? $500, and you've got all the crazy cool shots you want. So you'll see a lot of these top-down drone shots now as establishing shots showing kind of the vastness of the city or the city that the scene is going to take place in. So Usually you're going to see the first shot. It's going to establish where the scene is going to take place. That's why it's called an establishing shot. It's mostly going to be about the location of the setting. Another example I give is like if you're shooting a football movie and your main character, the quarterback, throws a last second touchdown to win, right? You don't want to cut to an extreme wide shot of him celebrating, right? You can't see if he's excited or crying tears of joy or if he's just kind of quietly taking in the moment, right? You can't tell from that extreme wide shot angle, right? You might see the whole crowd go crazy, which is good, but that's about the setting. It's not about that one quarterback. He'd be too small. So characters, you can't really get any information about characters in extreme wide shots, okay? Therefore, locations and settings and establishing where the scene's going to take place. All right, let's get a little closer here. So extreme wide shots are like, I'd say like 30 feet plus away. Once you get closer than that, once you get to about 10 to 20 feet away from your subject, that's what we would probably consider a wide shot, or a master shot is another name for it. And then it's just abbreviated WS. It's not a tricky abbreviation at all. In a wide shot, your actors are framed kind of head to toe. Their head is near the top of the frame and their feet are near the bottom of the frame when they're standing. Here in The Martian, I can't think of his name in The Martian, not Ben Affleck, it's Ben Affleck's friend. Oh my gosh, my brain is so bad now. I'm really mad. I gotta look it up. This guy, Matt Damon. Matt Damon, of course. Matt Damon. Good Lord, that was sad. Guys, jump in and save me if I'm struggling with an actor name here. Matt Damon, if he were to stand up, he would be, head at the top of the frame, feet at the bottom of the frame. So this is a master shot or a wide shot. Anytime your camera is 10 to 20 feet away from the actor or the subject, we would call that a wide shot. And wide shots are really good to use early in scenes. Probably you'll see them right after the establishing shot because you're going to set up characters' spatial relationships. For example, here is a shot, a wide shot or a master shot from The Godfather 2, I think. And they go with this shot early because you can see like kind of, okay, she's sitting at this end of the table, right? Michael's sitting over here, Fredo's over here, Robert Duvall is here, right? You kind of understand where everyone's at. And then after that, you can go and cut into like closer framings. But if you just started the scene right off the bat, cutting into close-ups of characters, like you wouldn't understand who's sitting where, and it would be kind of counterintuitive. It wouldn't make sense. People get kind of lost in the space, they call it. So it's good to use these shots early in scenes to set up spatial relationships. Like maybe we start with the establishing shot of the front of the school, Deer Valley, and then we cut to kind of a wide shot of the four friends sitting at the picnic tables in the quad. And then after that, we can go with the closer shots of them having their conversation about whatever it is. My daughter is learning to read over there. All right. The other thing that wide shots are really, really good for is that actors can use their whole body. You see them head to toe, and that means it's good for action scenes, showing off wardrobes, or anything that's like physical. So I should have included like a Jackie Chan action shot here. But like this shot here is a really good example, right, of Keitel and Buscemi in Reservoir Dogs, right? You can kind of see, obviously, the relationship, kind of the power dynamic, one guy up high, one guy down low. You can see the tension, right? You can see their weapons drawn. This shot here from Fight Club is a really good one as well, of Jack and Marla, because this is the resolution of the film, and you can see the smoke here. These three buildings, there used to be three, 1, 2, 3, blow up and crumble. Doing it in wide shot, you can see both Jack and Marla and the background at the same time, right? Wide shots kind of use both, right? It's location and character. Extreme wide shots are really just about location. Wide shots are a good combo. I think about Revenge of the Sith, right? The third Star Wars movie. where Obi-Wan and Anakin are battling with lightsabers in the climax, and they're jumping off of flying cars and on rivers of molten lava. And a lot of that is done in wide shot because I want to see the physicality. I want to see the characters kind of against the environment, you know, battling each other, but also having to navigate the hazards of the environment. So that's where wide shots are really good as well. Um, you know, anytime someone's getting chased, running, jumping, fighting, falling, um, well, that's where wide shot really excels, right? Where wide shots aren't so great is emotions and faces, right? Think about what percentage of the screen does Chris Pratt's or Zoe Saldana's face make up of this shot? Like me, like her face is like this big all told. It's like 2% maybe. It's a tiny, tiny amount of the screen. Same thing here, right? Tiny faces, hard to read kind of what they're feeling in this, right? We need to get close to people's faces to read their emotions, and wide shot is not a great shot for that. Right? Use it for physicality. Use it to show off the location, the character's relation to the space. That's the reason this Martian shot is so great, right? It shows the desolation of Matt Damon on the Mars surface. This again showing the relationship between the characters, but emotion, no, not so much. Location, right? Location of the buildings falling still a big part, right? The dinner table is still a big part. So that's what wide shots are good for: physicality, location, spatial relationships. Wide shots not so good for emotions and faces. So, all right, let's get a little closer still here. Let's go with a medium shot. There's no alternative names for medium shot. You just abbreviated MS. That's really easy. Medium shots are the most popular shot type. Like if you watch Netflix or TV tonight and you just tallied each shot, I would bet you pretty good money that a medium shot is going to be the shot type that you see the most. This is usually about 8 to 5 feet away from the subject, and we typically say that actors are framed waist up. So in a wide shot, you have kind of head to toe, um, and then a medium shot is kind of when you get to about the waist. All of these shots have like kind of loose, standard, and tight versions of themselves. Like you could say this is kind of a loose wide shot, right? There's some space here above and below. This is kind of also a loose one. This is kind of a standard wide shot where the feet and the head are at the top and the bottom of the frame. And then this is kind of a tight wide shot where, you know, I guess their legs are kind of, they would be kind of cut off even if the table wasn't there. Their ankles would be kind of cut off, and you see the heads are kind of cut off. So this would be like a tight wide shot. So the same thing holds true for medium shot. One moment, guys. Sorry, my daughter couldn't find a paper. Um, all right, so medium shots, waist up. And this is kind of a standard medium shot right here, I would say, of the Joker. These are kind of tighter medium shots of Cameron and Sloane from Ferris Bueller. Right, we're kind of at the rib cage level. And then if I go to the next page, you can see kind of this loose, these are some loose medium shots of Gal Gadot and Ed Norton and Brad Pitt in Fight Club, right? So we're kind of a little bit below the waist, right? You can see their belt buckles. You can see her waist. Here's kind of standard medium, and this is again a tight medium. So think there's always a loose, a standard, and a tight version of all of these shots. All right. If it's not a person, I would say it's anytime the camera is about 8 to 5 feet away from the subject. So if I said, get me like a medium shot of a car, you gotta have to, you know, get about half the car from about 8 to 5 feet away from it. The reason that medium shots are so popular is that you're kind of close enough now to really read the emotions of a character's face, but you still have the upper half of the body and hands so they can talk and use body language, or hold props or set up jokes with their hands and with their things they're holding, their props. Um, right? Obviously, it's too small in a wide shot to read emotions, but medium shots are kind of the best for dialogue. Um, because we can see people talk with their hands, right? I do it a lot. I talk with my hands when I emphasize things. You can see my face. I'm in a pretty tight medium shot. I'm actually probably in a loose close up on Zoom, but right, you can still see people's hands when you talk to them in person. The face is visible for motions, and actors still have hands for body language and props. This is the shot where you're really starting to care more about the subject and not the location, right? In a wide shot, we said that the location and the subject kind of have equal billing. Here in medium shot, the focus really begins to get placed on the subject, right? Here in Lily Mila Kunis in Black Swan, right? The other ballerinas in the scene are not important. They're just background dressing. It does not matter, right? Here, this is the scene in Fight Club where Brad Pitt finally tells Ed Norton, "I want you to hit me as hard as you can." And that's, it's about dialogue. It's about intent. It's not about this bar or anything else. And this scene here, I think, is when Wonder Woman starts to deflect the bullets. So it's really about what she's doing. It's not about this kind of desolate World War I landscape behind her. And then Steve Zissou, Bill Murray here, right, in this tight close-up. And you can see the other two ladies to his side are kind of also frame standard. The other people are kind of like background dressing. These three are the three most important. Right, it's about the people. It's not about this little tiny submarine that they're in. And it's not about this famous Picasso statue in downtown Chicago. It's about Cameron and Sloane and their conversation about Ferris Bueller. So yeah, this shot is about the subject. It's about the person. It's not about the background. And like I said, this is the shot that you're going to use most of the time for dialogue between characters because they can use their hands and their face to convey information. And because you can fit 2 or maybe even 3, right? You've got 3 kind of standard medium shot people here. You can fit easily 2, possibly 3, basically touching shoulders. So you can have people have a 2-shot conversation, right, where there's 2 people in the shot and they can just talk back and forth instead of having to have 2 separate shots. A medium shot can just kind of live, and the characters can have their conversation. So when you're using dialogue back and forth between characters, this is probably the shot you're going to use the most. Yep. So subject, background doesn't matter. Yep, that's it. But yeah, there's the loose version and the standard version and the tight version of each of these shots. So think about medium shots. The thing with the medium shot is it's the most popular shot because it's like safe. It's like kind of like vanilla. It can be bland. You don't just want to live in the medium shot. Your movie just can't be like medium shot followed by a medium shot followed by a medium shot. People are going to tune out because it is so standard and so plain. You have to mix it up. All these shots, you can't just stay like wide, 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 wide. You always need to be moving and giving your audience something new to focus on. But the thing that I see most with high schoolers is they kind of stay wide too much, or they stay medium too much. I'm like, you got to vary it up. You need some variation. I know this is safe and easy, but safe and easy never got anybody anywhere, right? All right. Let's get a little closer still here. Let's go to close up. Again, no fancy names for close-ups, and it's just abbreviated CU. So close-up is once you get to about the collarbone range. If you kind of have the high chest, I would call this kind of a loose close-up where I'm at right now. A regular close-up would be, right, my collarbones are right here, so they're at the bottom of the frame. Oof. And then a tight close-up would be something like this, probably right here, where the top of the head's cut off, but the chin is right at the bottom of the frame. All right. So I've got kind of a, I'd say standard to loose-ish close-up of Harrison Ford here at Blade Runner. Yes, dear. 1 second, guys. Okay. All right, so this is the loose one of Harrison Ford. This is kind of a tight version here of Bill Murray, right, with his head cut off. Here's a standard one of Amy Adams from Arrival, and here's a close one of the kid from Whiplash. So this is when your camera is about 4 to 2 feet away from the subject, if you didn't have a person to frame with kind of the body parts. And also, I also put in some shots of like a hand, right, or feet, right? This is the goober from Spider-Verse when Peter Parker gives Miles the USB drive, and the climax of Moana when she's walking towards the car, right? These are close-ups of her feet or close-ups of the hand. The camera is about 2 to 4 feet away from those subjects, right? You can't use collarbones when you're showing an item or feet, okay? This is the shot you want to use when it's an emotional moment, because this is like so close to their face, so close to their eyes, and the eyes are the gateway to the soul, right? And the face is where all our emotion gets registered. So your actors really need to focus on their face and their eyes here. This one here of Harrison Ford does have his hand in it, but that's pretty creative framing. Usually, as you see in my other examples of Murray and Adams and the Whiplash Kid, right? There's no other body language here. It's just their face. That's all they really have to work with. But this is the shot that's going to get your audience to bond with the characters, and that could be for the good guys or for the bad guys, right? You don't bond with the bad guys, but it makes you hate them more, right? When they do something sinister and evil, and you cut in a close-up, you dislike them even more. Your emotions get heightened there. So this is the best shot type for emotion. The background, though, is pretty gone. Like, in a medium shot, you can still see. It's not about the statue, but you can see it. It's not about the battlefield, but you can see it. In a close-up, the background becomes next to nothing, right? You just barely get a tiny bit of the water behind Steve. You get these two other dudes, but they're blurry, right? This is just a blurry mess of a room of some kind, right? It doesn't matter. You can't tell where this shot's taking place here. I mean, this is a great shot because it's Moana and you can see the water in the background, but it is blurry. When you go into close-up, usually you're going to get some bokeh, right? The blurring of the background because of the physics of light and the lens. Doesn't happen so much on phones because phones have tiny lenses. You do have the portrait mode on your phones that can introduce bokeh, which I'm sure you guys have all messed with. But on the cameras we have at school, right, when you go into close-up, your background is going to start to fall away. It's going to start to become blurry and not as important. So you can't really put any useful information in the background of a close-up. Close-up is about just that thing that you're looking at. It's not trying to do anything else than that one subject that you're highlighting at that moment, right? That's why it's the best shot for emotion. Background is gone. Your actors have to use their eyes and their face primarily, right? And then again, if you have a close-up of, an object, you'll see that a lot in cutaways of important objects or important moments in movies. You'll cut around to show those things in a heightened manner, right? All right, let's do the very last one now, which is an extreme close-up. Oops, an extreme close-up, or abbreviated XCU. This is your closest shot type. This is when one single object is framed. Like you can't get any closer to it. So, for example, we've got kind of the kiss between Wally and Eve. You've got the eyeball at the beginning of Blade Runner from 1982, which is a crazy shot for 1982. They've even got a reflection of the city and the fire in the eye, which is amazing. And then the shot that I think is most important for high schoolers is the phone shot, right? Whenever you have a text message on a phone, you want to get so close to it. I would say even closer than this. This is a little far for me even. Like I like to have basically the message, like let's see if I can find a message here on my phone, show you guys what I'm talking about. Not that, that's from VJ. We don't want to be blowing up VJ's messages. So like I would get into, come on camera, adjust. There we go. There we go. My mom is self-quarantining. So nice and tight, really close like that, right? Really, really big. So that way everyone can read it. I see a lot of movies, high school movies, where there's a text message on the phone, and it's like even if the color was right, it's like this far away. What's on that. And I know a lot of our movies revolve around phones, so we want to make sure that we get really, really extremely close whenever you show a phone on the screen, super tight. It doesn't ever feel natural when you have an actor read a text message out loud, because very rarely do we read text messages out loud. Some other really good extreme close-ups here. Nina, Natalie Portman plucking the feather out of her shoulder in Black Swan, which is another one of my top 10 movies. Actually, did I say this was my third favorite movie? Yeah. And then the classic shot of Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne in The Matrix, with Keanu taking the red pill, not the blue pill, right? The blue pill, you stay in Wonderland, but if you take the red pill, I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes in the reflections of his glasses, right? Reflections play such a huge role in those Matrix films. So when you use an extreme close-up, you're like 1 to 2 feet away from the subject, and you're going to force that viewer to focus on what you want them to focus on. You are controlling the eyes of the viewer in an extreme close-up, right? In a medium shot, yeah, the director wants me to look at Lily dancing, but maybe these two lights are cool and interesting to me. Maybe this dude down here, maybe like instead of Gal Gadot, you're like, oh, there's some trees out there that don't look so hot, right? And you're paying attention to the beer bottle over here or something, right? But in extreme close-up, like you can really only look at the eyeball. You can only look at this phone. You can only look at this feather. You're controlling your audience's eyes. So if there's something important that drives the story forward, consider using extreme close-up, right? You can only use this if what being shown drives the story forward. So for instance, like if I had two characters sitting down to breakfast and all of a sudden I cut to an extreme close-up of them stirring their coffee, the audience is going to be like, wait, what's up with the coffee? Like, is it poison? Did I miss something about the coffee? Right? Unless the coffee is important, we probably shouldn't cut to an extreme close-up of it, right? If something relevant to the coffee happens, then yeah, let's cut to an extreme close-up of it. But you can't really cut to extreme close-ups all willy-nilly, right? It's got to have a reason. It's got to drive the story forward. It's got to have something to do with your plot. All right. This is, like I said, it's going to force that viewer to focus. You control their eyes, and the same could be said for this kind of stuff. The close-ups, right? You're forcing the viewer to focus, and it's something that's important to your story. It's not an unmotivated cut, right? So for phones, really, really tight, please, please, please. That's a big drawback I see of high schoolers. Another big drawback I see from high schoolers is they don't use close-ups enough. I don't know if it's because we're nervous to get into close up, embarrassed to see our face that big on the screen. But I feel like high schoolers don't use close-ups enough in their movie making because, and one of the reasons another reason I think this might be is because like just in regular everyday life is kind of lived in wide shot and maybe occasionally not, right? Normally when you're like out with your friends and you're standing in the quad, we give each other enough distance when we're standing talking that I can probably see people head to toe, right? If I was up in front of the classroom, you would see me head to toe. You would see my whole person. We're very rarely close enough to someone that you can't see the bottom half of them, right? People you hug, right? People you sit next to on the couch, like your family or something like that. But even the medium shot doesn't happen all that often in real life. And close up, I mean, you basically have to be making out with someone to be that close to them. So I think that the infrequency of life that we're in close up is kind of the reason that we don't see it a lot in high school movies, but we need it, right? We need close up to make our audience to bond with characters and to get our audience to care about characters, which is going to make them like our movies more. So that would probably be some of my big things I don't see enough of. High schoolers don't use close-ups enough. They don't get tight enough on phones. They stay in the wide shot too much. The other thing that's tough about wide shot is that your microphone is pretty far away from your characters as well, hard to hear them. All right, so those are our shot types, our framing types, right? We got extreme wide shot or an establishing shot, which is about location. We got wide shot or master shot, which is kind of a good mix between location and character, spatial relationships. We've got medium shots, which is really about the character, but you can still use body language, good for dialogue because you can fit two characters in a scene, in a shot, I should say. Close up, which is really the most emotional shot, but you can really only get one person in it. Don't have body language anymore. It's all about the face and the eyes. And then you've got extreme close-ups, which is about one single object. If something that's really, really important to your story needs to be shown. Okay, so those are our shot types. I'm going to stop recording now. So hopefully everyone picked that up. And I'll